Hello, my name is Brandy Leffler, and I will be peer reviewing Tristan Freeman's rough draft for International Peace. So, first, I was going to start off with the summary, and his paper is mainly about terrorism, and the main idea he wants to portray, I believe, is differences of terrorists and freedom fighters. So that is a really interesting topic to go in, first of all, which kind of grabs your reader's attention, which is great. And he also talks about how 9/11 has completely altered the way that everyone in the world views radicalist groups. The first point he brings up is the increase of security, and his example he used was America, and how in our excuse me, in our air travel and travel and internationally in general, or even some most national flights too, there's huge security, even the mention of certain words could have you triggered and stuff like that. And an institution he mentioned in this was the TSA, the Travel Security Agency, and he mentioned there was a pro of this, and that it created a lot of jobs for people, which is generally a good thing, and it's protecting the US from future possible terrorist attacks, which is another pro, obviously. And he Tristan also gave us a variety of statistics of terrorist incidents, and the point of this is excuse me, and just to show the change in terrorists over the change in terrorist attacks since 9/11 happened. And another point he brings up is the definition of terrorism itself. At the beginning of this course we talked about how war is really hard to define, so he figured he'd bring up how terrorism itself is hard to define for a lot of people. How are we to help stop it if we can't really agree on a firm definition of it? The same kind of parallels with what peace and determining peace, and hard to explain, I don't know, but how we talked about war and how would we be able to stop war if we all can't agree on a definition, something like that. And he also talked about how there are some sovereign states out there that oppress people and deny people their human rights, which is could be seen as a form of terrorism, but it's hard to control, because you can't really intervene in another state if you you have no reason to be there. They're a sovereign state, so that's kind of a touchy issue. Another thing he went on to say was the Western civilizations, he defined what a Western civilization is, and how we view certain things and stuff like that. He also mentioned the stereotypes of terrorists, so how I don't want to say we, but how a majority of Americans view terrorism in general, and we kind of associate it with Muslims, or people that practice Islam, and things such as that, which is, well, yeah. And this is only an issue because there have been extremists that have just that have created this problem for many Muslims and people that practice Islam, and the objective of these, he talked about the objective of Islam. Sorry. He talked about the objective of Islamic extremists, and how it doesn't really necessarily correlate with what the Quran is teaching, and which I think is an important point to bring up. It's not the religion itself that does the extremist things. It's just a certain group of people, or maybe just one person from a certain group, and that gives it that bad label, which is, in my opinion, a little ridiculous. But yeah. He also talked about the various meanings of jihad, which is really misunderstood in our in Western culture in general. And he then goes on to talk about Islam strays from terrorism completely, there's no mention of terrorism in the Quran, and stuff like that. So yeah. And then in like the last part of his paper, he mentions like the differences in like a freedom fighter, which is like someone who wants to fight for like what they believe is right. So like maybe people that are like fighting for their human rights or something like that. And he also talks about like, or yeah, he compares it to like a terrorist, which is someone who like is using like extreme methods in order to like promote what they believe is right, or like go against something that's like something they just don't believe in at all, or like go against like a state. It could be like a variety of things. And he also talks about like legitimate military acts versus like non-legitimate, and like what qualifies to be like a legitimate military attack. And he also talks about like the targeting of non-combatants, like people that aren't even involved at all. And so he just talks about like that's how that's like basically wrong. Okay, that's all guys. And then some suggestions I have is like, I know it's a rough draft, but like try to pay attention to like what word, I think if you don't have Word or like whatever like thing you use to write your paper, like pay attention to like the grammar like that it wants you to edit, because at least when I like downloaded it to look at it, it had like a lot of like grammatical errors underneath it. Like some of your verbs, tenses were like misconstrued. I don't know if it was like the copy I got or what it was. You had a pretty good intro, like it touched on all the topics that you later mentioned in your paper, which is like good to like give like a broad perspective of what you're going to say, and then like go into detail in each paragraph. I think I had like trouble discovering like what your argument was. Like I'm pretty sure it was about like the freedom fighter versus terrorist, but like in your final paper I would try to make it like more solidified, like okay, this is like, or like have your hypothesis and like your thesis like kind of more like drawn out than you do right now. So like this is what I'm going to explore, and like this is how I'm going to do it, and this is like my like thesis, like what the point I'm arguing. And like yeah, and like you use like the sources to support your thesis and such. And like try to like relate each of your points back to your thesis or like your main idea, because like I mean you had some really good points that you brought up, but it didn't really like some like the jihad for example, like I had a hard time like relating that back to like the whole like terrorist thing. Like I don't know, it's like kind of really broad, so like maybe just like kind of like zone in on like why like it's important to like mention the jihad and like how it will help you like defend your argument. Yeah, like I said, you brought up good points, but like why are they valid in your paper? Like why are you using them? Why do you think it's necessary that you should have brought up these specific points? And you didn't have like your outline in there, which I thought was kind of bizarre, because like it's supposed to be like the paper format. So like a way you could like somewhat like kind of put your outline in there is like using those as like your headers, which is like what I did in my paper to like help me personally like organize my paper and like know like which way I want to go with it. So like that would help a lot with that. You did a good job at like avoiding the we/like our things, but I would just like pay attention to that closely. Like I know it's hard, like I mean I have issues like not using we and stuff, because you don't know what audience this is reaching out to, so like it could be like someone that isn't even from America, so you can't be like, oh yeah, we believe this. So like just like try to stray away from that use. Let's see what else. Make sure to like read over your work. I know like I've always had troubles with that, but like this is like worth a lot of our like points in this class. Like it's really important to like make sure you read over your work, or like I mean we are doing that right now to like watch out for each other and like make sure we're on like a good track. So just like make sure you like read over it, make sure like your paragraph structures kind of make sense and like they just kind of flow together. And like your definitions of terrorism, like maybe just like find some more sources on that, maybe like just like kind of build up your argument on that, because like you said there are like different like definitions of terrorism, but like you didn't really go into like more aspects of it. You just kind of like defined it in one way and then just kind of moved on. Like, I know it's a rough draft, but like I just figured that would help you like with your argument better. Or that didn't make sense. Help you with your argument. Yeah. I think that's all I have for now. But yeah, I think you have like a good topic. Like, it's really interesting, and I think you could like definitely do a lot more with it and just like expand on some of your points more, and like some of the points you had brought up in your outline. Like, I kind of can't wait to like see how you like flesh all those out and just like prove your point and how you want to do it and stuff. So yeah, and make sure you like, I don't know if I like read it wrong, but I didn't see a conclusion. Like, I know it's like a rough draft and you're still working on it, but like make sure your conclusion just like kind of concludes. Yeah. So if you have any questions, just let me know, and I hope this is helpful, and I hope I didn't seem too harsh or anything. I just want you to like get a good grade and have a good paper.